I'm curious on what your experience is now that I think I want to use my quotes, my air quotes on that we're ending the pandemic. What has it been like for you for commercial real estate?
Welcome to the Jennifer J. Hammond Podcast. Jennifer is a licensed realtor, educator, speaker, and best-selling author. Jennifer's goal is to help you find your yay in every day.
So, hello, Bob Diamond. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Jennifer. Thanks for the warm welcome. Great to be.
I love that you have your backyard, which I feel so blessed. I've been there. It was about a year ago. I was hanging out with you, and I love you're in Puerto Rico, which I think is amazing. So talk about, I know you were in the New York area before you moved down to Puerto Rico. And I just, especially for those of us who are waking up, like right now, I just woke up in the Washington, D.C. area, and it is freezing. Like it is literally 34 degrees today. And of course, the wind and very cold. So I know New York was very cold as well today. I think you're in the 20s today. But tell us why you moved, other than maybe the winters.
So it's the winter, but more to the point. We have a 5-year-old who, at the time we moved, we were living in Manhattan, right downtown by Lincoln Center, and it's just not, to me, the right place to raise a child. That was my thought. It's not where I want to raise a child. So we started looking at other places, and the suburbs of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. I grew up in Connecticut. Not particularly great. It's fine, but not great. So we started looking a little further south, and we discovered Puerto Rico, which has rolled out the red carpet for people. They're really looking for people to come back here. They give you all kinds of incentives to move here, help in starting a business. In real estate, Jennifer, there's some deals where you can get 80% of the cost paid for by the government. Wow. 80. They're really just looking to get people back in the island, and it's spectacular. This is my backyard, and it's looking at it, I realize it looks like one of those fake backgrounds, but it's just my backyard. And it's just fabulous. It's a great place to live, really nice people, and literally Americans moving down here by the tens of thousands. There's actually a housing shortage right now because of the number of people moving.
Wow. Well, and I think in a lot of places, like in the Washington, D.C. area, we're seeing a lot of multiple offers on properties. And it's funny because it's starting to slow down in certain price ranges, but not in all price ranges, not for sure. So for anybody who's watching this after, today is November 6th, 2021. And it has been a wild year in real estate for so many reasons. It's been a wild year. But I was going to say, so I'm curious on, for you, I know you also own commercial real estate back in the States, not necessarily in Puerto Rico. I'm curious on what your experience is now that I think I want to use my quotes, my air quotes on that we're ending the pandemic. What has it been like for you for commercial real estate?
Very painful. It's very, very painful. Glad I have another good business to support my commercial real estate. So I own real estate. There's office buildings and restaurants, and I've owned a lot of shared office space. And you could just imagine a shared office space and restaurants. It's been a rough 2 years for us. And interestingly, another thing that's going on, I own a lot of places in Philadelphia, is we're seeing a lot of break-ins and problems like that. That's causing us, a lot of costs to fix things. And it's just what's going on right now. And I think, I see signs of it straightening out. We still get people asking for office space, because now we are again getting that. Restaurants back to doing okay again. So I expect this will not capsize. It'll go up. The other interesting thing, Jennifer, is we're in a time of inflation, and traditionally real estate is a hedge against inflation. It's a real asset, hence real estate. It's got its own intrinsic value. It's not a financial asset that can be inflated away. So it should, in an inflationary time, go up in value, and we'll see. And I think though the market is segmented. I mean, you have some places where the top of the market is crumpling. At least that's what I'm hearing. But commercial, we still have people coming through. We have people renting. We have people looking to buy places. One of my places in Philadelphia is for sale, and we have traffic coming through. It's not like residential though, where you put a house in the market and you get 6 offers. It's not that.
Right. Well, and even, like I said, that we have multiple offers in the Washington, D.C. area. It's not all of Washington, D.C. that is getting multiple offers, and it's not in all price ranges that we're getting it. I mean, obviously, these crazy ones with 21 offers and things of that nature, it just depends. It depends also. I have seen, at least my experience, because I'm licensed as a real estate agent in Virginia, DC, and Maryland. So weirdly enough, I've had listings in all three jurisdictions over the last couple of months. And it's been such a fascinating thing because they're in all sorts of different price ranges. And then I also have buyers that are going out and looking for things. And the experience has been, it depends. It depends on the area. It depends on the price range. It depends on also, again, I'm going to use my air quotes, if people feel like it's a deal. If they don't feel like they're getting a deal, because I think the spring up here in the Washington, D.C. area was so crazy that people got really discouraged. And they just felt like, well, never mind, I think I'm just going to sit it out for a while, and I'm not interested in moving, no matter how badly I want to move. They just felt like they couldn't get something, and that they were going to just so overpay. And of course, in residential, giving up your home inspection, your financing contingency, giving up all sorts of protections in the contract makes people feel very uncomfortable. And so the fall has been a different story. I mean, not that that hasn't happened, but it depends on the price. It depends on the place. It depends on the location. Still goes back to location, location, location. But now we're seeing that location be very, very different, including one of the things that we've seen in Washington, D.C., and I think New York's probably similar in this way, is that condos are not as popular. And a lot of that has to do with how the condos themselves handled the pandemic, and in so many different ways, from having your food or your groceries delivered. And like some buildings wouldn't let people in the building. You had to leave the groceries on the curb. And then other, or your pizza delivery had to be on the curb. They weren't allowed in the building. Or people going to sell a property and finding with the COVID restrictions, it being very difficult to get access to a property to show it. So it became very difficult to do all of that. So it's been a really interesting story. I don't know what you've seen for New York. Do you know anything about that market?
Yeah, so I have places in New York also, and that market is starting to rebound. And the top of the market just got clipped. If I looked at a year ago, it was hard to sell anything. Hard to sell the co-ops. Mostly it's co-ops there, which is the equivalent of condos. Very, very hard to sell last year. But now it's coming back with a vengeance. And I was up there, I guess, 2 weeks ago. And foot traffic is down, but I would say it's down by about a third, not more than that. So there are people out and about. And honestly, I think a lot of people don't take the mask and all that stuff that seriously. I think people are just either fatigued from it, or they just think that, maybe it's not true, or maybe it's not what's being presented. Because everywhere I go, and I travel a lot, there are people, they don't care if you're wearing a mask. People aren't really hyper about it. Maybe it's because a lot of people are vaccinated. It could be that. But I just observing, whatever's going on, people seem to not be taking it as seriously, like it's, as great a danger to their health. I'm not going to take any position that here. I know there are people with different feelings about it. But just observationally, people are not, as caring about it. Like, I think people think it's kind of funny when you walk into a restaurant and you have to wear your mask, and then you go sit down and you don't have to wear a mask.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of inconsistencies. I can agree. My observation is, even the way that it's applied and the way people feel about it, it's definitely a hot topic. And it's even for open houses, it's just very different, and it's being applied. And of course, in the DC area, we have three very different, shall we say, government leaderships in each area. And it's just very different the way that all of those are applying to real estate, from open houses to showing houses, whether you're the listing, on the selling side or on the buying side. It's just been a very, very interesting time, to say the least. But go ahead.
Just a couple comments for people out there in real estate. I think a couple of things. First of all, the cost to build is going up, and is going to continue to go up because the cost of labor, the cost of materials, even getting materials, very costly, even getting the materials, that makes the existing housing more valuable. That's number one. So if you've got places that you're renovating or you've got places to sell, it's going to be a good time to sell. The other thing is in an inflationary time when wages are going to go up, your real estate will go up in value. And one thing I would say for anyone who's a new investor, the mistake I've seen some new investors make that I would just avoid like the plague is they'll look at places in terrible neighborhoods where on paper it looks amazing. You're like, oh my gosh, I could buy this place and have a $700 a month mortgage and a $1,800 a month rent. In the really bad neighborhoods, that's only on paper. The reality of it is far different. The reality of it is a lot of defaults, a lot of damage to your property, a lot of maintenance just because people damage it that needs to be done, a lot of non-payment, a lot of evictions, and very little appreciation in those kinds of neighborhoods. So I would stick with places that are solid, working class neighborhoods and better. I really would. I wouldn't get lured into the shiny, what's not really gold look. It's like a plated tin instead of actual gold. So
I was going to say, I would love to also take it to one step further. As you said, I would love to see what your experience has been with the eviction moratoriums, because, I know that affected last year, 2020, as well as, of course, this year, 2021. And now that we're rounding the corner to the end of this, I'm curious, what has your experience been and how did that affect both on all levels, from the commercial real estate to the residential real estate?
You have some tenants, not all of them certainly, but some tenants that get a little like big for their britches. They think, oh, you can't evict me, I'm just not going to pay. And my thought on that is, yeah, that's been true. And when we'll get around to finally evicting them, what I expect is a damaged unit, and what I expect is that I'll never collect that money. That's what I think is going to happen. And I think it's going to cause a lot of opportunity on the buying side for people who say, I want to buy from a fatigued landlord, just a landlord is just going to throw in the towel. Because most landlords are mom and pop. They're 5 units or less, and they're not in it for that. They're in it because they thought, if I have a couple of rental properties, I get them paid off, there's my retirement. I can collect that rent and I have a nice retirement income stream. But they get fatigued from something like this. And what's also been going on is a lot of banks have just given moratoriums on mortgage payments, and those are coming off now also. And the landlords that have been able to stay afloat because they didn't have to pay the mortgage, well, now that's no longer going to be the case. So I think there'll be a lot of buying opportunities from fatigued landlords, from straight out foreclosures. Should be a lot of opportunities. And don't take the joy and pain of others, but I think it's just a fact that there will be fatigued landlords that want to sell, and there will be people that get foreclosed upon where the banks just want to dump them. So I think good opportunity. I would save up your money, keep your credit good, and look out for those opportunities. Probably 6 to 8 months down the road, but they're coming.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. Yeah, I don't think that in January it's going to all be flooding the market. But I think that, again, I definitely predict that 4 months, we're definitely going to see huge changes. 6 months, it's going to be a different story and a different conversation. That's at least my I want to say my crystal ball prediction.
I agree with you. No, I think that's what's going to happen. And, it's a lot of opportunity. I think you have to look at things opportunistically and say, do I buy at the right time? Because for most investors in anything, whether you're talking gold, silver, stocks, equities, whatever, real estate, the timing of when you buy makes a big difference. And you want to buy when things are down and when maybe something's a little unpopular. And you have to have what investors call a conviction. You have to be, really convicted that, this is a good idea. And real estate has always been a good idea. But you want to get in when things are down, not when everybody's buying. And Money Magazine has every story about it's time to real estate invest. You want to do it when other people are running out. And that's what we're going to be looking at. And that's when you can get the owner financing. That's when you can get the good terms. That's the time to do it.
And I agree with you, because I think that there are gonna be lots of people who are exhausted, and also to take it one step further, because we talked about commercial and residential, but one of the other things that I've seen is the Airbnb, the short-term rental. Of course, when the pandemic hit, I had Airbnb rentals as well, the short term, and it was very interesting the way it was handled by the government, as well as by, the the people who actually put the websites up, whether it's Vacations by Owner or Airbnb or whatnot. And I think it was very interesting because, as you said before, if you were looking at, let me go into a really bad neighborhood, it's okay because I have these incredible margins. And yet the thing is the reality is, so how many months can you go over and over and over with absolute zero income? And I think that's something that people just, you might have thought, you might have budgeted in your numbers for, 2 or 3 months a year to be vacant, but never long times. And we've seen that now that it can happen. And I mean, who knows what the future holds? What's the chance of another, pandemic, or is this really over, or what's the next thing? So I think people are looking at short-term rentals in a very different way now.
But I think that the catchword is quality all the time. You want a place where people would actually want to visit, want to live in, want to visit, meaning on a short term. And that's what's important. And it's always important. And like I said, the newbie makes the mistake of getting out a spreadsheet and thinking, oh, I know it's a bad neighborhood with high crime and dirt on the streets. But you start getting your reviews in VRBO or wherever you are, and all of a sudden it says, I was afraid to go out of the door after dark. You're done. And those places are hard to resell, relatively speaking. Flint's a nice neighborhood, really easy to resell. Because again, it's about quality. It's not about, and it doesn't mean that you have to buy the Taj Mahal. It just means a place that people feel safe, place people want to visit, and there you're going to be good in any rental property, whether it's a vacation rental or a long-term rental.
I think that's a great principle. It is really about location, but it's about quality in those locations, because again, if you're not in a good location and you don't have a good quality product, whether it's a commercial place, and again, I think the landscape has changed so much on what people want and what they expect out of commercial real estate, as well as what they want and what they expect out of their home. I mean, one of the biggest changes I've seen from people who are selling and buying something else is that now they're like, I think I'm just going to homeschool the kids. Or, it's going back and forth with, I have to homeschool them, now I need to take them home. Now I put them back in school. Now I'm not really sure I agree with whatever new ruling has happened in my county or whatever. And so now they're like, I need to be able to have not only an office and home for me, but for my spouse, my partner, and I need a space for my child to be able to be educated, whether it's by me or my spouse, or, we bring a tutor in. But now I need a very different type of house that I wasn't planning to have to need before. And so I think that that's also changed the landscape of what people are buying out there and what they're interested in. And again, what you said was quality. I think that definition of quality and location has changed.
It's really interesting because you're describing a lot of my life. I mean, we have a room that's set aside for my son to learn in. We bring in a teacher. I couldn't see having a preschooler going in with a mask, separated from other kids by a minimum of 6 feet, surrounded in a plexiglass thing. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. He's gonna have a weird first impression of school. So we've been homeschooling, and we have instructors and teachers that come through. We have a space for that. And you're right, I have a home office space. We converted an outbuilding into an office because of that reason. I think you're right. People need more space. And to get space, typically the way to do that is you go further away from the city center.
Right.
And further away you go, the cheaper that space gets.
And the definition, because restaurants aren't, as you have experienced, restaurants are not what they used to be. So it used to be that you wanted location, so you could walk down to your coffee shop or your restaurant. And now that lifestyle has changed so much. And I can tell you, I thought it was really interesting. We had over at SiriusXM, they did a survey because everybody started learning to work from home during the pandemic, during 2020. And so they just did a survey, and it was amazing. Everyone, I think it was, they said it was over 90% of the people who are employed with SiriusXM said they would prefer to just stay at home and, work from a home studio rather than go into, and of course, like from our studios, Manhattan, Washington, DC, LA, it's just, you're talking about crazy traffic. And so now again, your car choice is different because your house choice and your house location is so different because your work and your school has completely changed over the last 2 years.
That's really interesting. Yeah, we have two cars, and the second car, like, I take it out about once a month just so that it drives once a month. Literally, that's the only reason I take it out. And it's interesting. I think that it is changing. And if we were going to buy cars again, I don't know that we would buy a second car, especially when you can just do Uber.
Yeah.
For the occasional time that you need it.
And that's actually exactly for me as well. I actually had two cars, and I just went ahead and gave one of them back, and I didn't replace it. And now I'm like, why do I need two cars? I don't need two cars. And I think that, again, their housing needs, all of it is just changing in such a way that it's impacting real estate on all the different levels, from residential to commercial and then all the different uses that we have for real estate. Again, will you have just shared space? Will things be much more virtual? All of that it's changing. And again, I think it's very different from the city locations in DC, we've had this enormous amount of people that have sold whatever they owned in the DC area, and they've moved out to the beach, whether it's Delaware or the Maryland beaches. They're just like, I'm going to work virtually. And again, the same thing with like big mortgage companies, banks. So many of them have the majority of their workforce is all virtual now. And so now they could actually move to Puerto Rico, where you are, and work because they don't have to go into an office anymore.
And you wouldn't believe if I told you what happened here. Like, essentially, the housing where I live tripled. Right? It's 3.5 times up from when you were here.
Wow, that was a year ago, November of last year. Yeah.
And to get a house to live in or rent is a blood sport. It's just the only offers that go through are all cash offers where you can show you have all the cash. It's crazy. And
wow.
Just, people are you're right. People are heading to places they wouldn't have otherwise headed. And, I would say for someone doing real estate investing, what you want to look at is a couple of things. First, because I know this is real estate basics, so I'll just give you some basics from my point of view. I would look for places that are not super heavy renovations. I think that the renovation game is a difficult game. You always get surprises, and right now supplies can be hard to get, labor can be hard to get, and things can drag on. And renovations are always filled with surprises, even in the best of times. And now I wouldn't necessarily want those surprises. Just an example, we replaced some windows in our house, and it took a year to get them. A year. Imagine.
Wow.
A year. Because they couldn't we were inquiring about them, like, oh, we can't get the glass. Oh, so then we don't have the tinting film. And then they delivered a bunch of windows that were all damaged because they had inexperienced people running machines. And so just complete nuttiness. So I would say for a new investor, I would go for lighter renovations rather than heavy. That'd be one aspect of it. I would also look for a quality neighborhood. By quality, I do not mean that you have to buy only in Beverly Hills. What I mean is that you buy places where people can feel safe, where there's access to amenities like hospitals. Hospitals are great because they have a lot of employees too who like to walk to work sometimes. Transportation centers, easy to get in and out, and mostly a safe feeling. A place where you can go. If you visit at night, you don't feel like you need to come with a guard dog and an escort. You want it to be where you feel safe and comfortable, because that's where you'll get the best tenants, people who want a place where they'll feel safe and comfortable. You don't have to build the Taj Mahal as a rental. It should be clean and nice, but it doesn't have to be the Taj Mahal. It doesn't need $500 light fixtures. It just needs good light.
Yep.
And Home Depot can certainly supply some good, inexpensive lighting. So I think those are the real estate basics. And I'd also just keep in mind your numbers. So just a couple of rules of thumb I'll give you. That if your if your annual rent is about 5% of your purchase price, you're probably fine. That's one metric I use. And the other thing is, if you're going to do a fix and flip, and this is honest truth, and I know it's painful, but you really need to buy for about 65% of its retail value minus your fix-up cost. And that is a big number to get to. It's not an easy number to find. but it's about 65% minus fix up. So if you're talking about a $300,000 house, which is about average cost of a house in America, you need to buy it for about 65% of its value, meaning fixed up value. So it's that about 200,000 minus your fix up costs. And I know that sounds crazy high, but when you start going through the numbers and you look at your carrying costs, your expenses to sell it, it's just, that's what you need. I can tell you that. At that rate, you should make about 15% on your deal. And anything you go above that, like if you paid 70%, you're probably making 10%. If you pay 75%, you're probably making 5%. If you pay 80%, you're probably break even.
Yep.
And that's also a mistake that new investors will make. But like, well, they'll tell me later, they're like, oh, I knew, it was more the numbers you talked about, but I just wanted to get a place. I just wanted to do a deal. And it's a very expensive education if you want to do it that way. But it takes, spend your time shopping for the bargain. Plan on looking at 100 houses before you buy one. That's a unfortunate metric, but that is the way it is. And if you do that, you'll make great money and have a great business. If you don't, then you'll live to regret it, and maybe you'll do better next time. But it's just, I see people go out like, well, I bought it. I know it was 80% of retail, but I thought it would be fine. I thought that it's just not.
Yeah.
So those would be my thoughts on it.
And I think that what you're saying with the basics, I think also the other thing that's different, that's changed now that we're, as I said, at the end of November 2021, is that, again, how you would renovate a place. Like, I love what you just said about, it doesn't need to be the Taj Mahal. It doesn't need to be the most amazing renovation. What it does need is it needs to be sensible. It needs to be clean. And the spaces really need to be functional when you renovate a place. Again, like what we just talked about earlier, in the fact that you may need to have, especially if it's a couple, if you're going to rent to a couple and maybe they have, a one child, you need a place that they can actually not just study, but if they need a tutor or if they're going to be homeschooled, they need, I hate to say, but like their classroom. Where is there space for their classroom? And then if there's two working adults in the house, where are they? What if they both need to be on a Zoom call or some kind of, work call at the same time? You can't just have one office or one. So the spaces need to be functional, like granite countertops and stainless steel appliances are not anywhere near as important as they were years ago. Now it's much more about the space, how the space is being used, and is it very functional? Right?
Give another interesting thing too, because we're talking a lot of technical stuff. It's a great time to be getting into rentals because you have a couple of things going on. Number one, more people are going to be renting. There are a lot of people who don't have the stability to get a mortgage. If you try to get a mortgage when you're a contractor and not an employee, it's really an uphill battle, really tough. So you're going to have a lot of people who are not going to buy, they're going to rent. And you also have a difference in psychology. Today, the thought of, renting things that you need when you need them, anything from at the top end, private jets that you can have Uber-like services for private jets, which they have, to an Uber car. It's not unusual to think about, renting things instead of owning them. Right. And I think that's a different mindset. And the younger generation even has more of that mindset. So I think it's a really great time to be getting into rentals and to build your portfolio for long-term rentals. And, I know that the fix and flip is really appealing and sort of sexy and woo, but the real money long-term is in getting your rentals together, because you get the rentals together, it's not much work on a month-to-month basis. Occasionally, if you have quality place, you're going to have an occasional turnover. You have to repaint it, clean it up. Not really a big deal. And you can build real wealth that way. And we're also in an inflationary time, which should be going on for a while. Those places are just going to go up in value. And when you buy quality, you can always exit if you want to.
Well, I was going to say, and Dan, I'm also curious on your opinion on the multifamily, like the actual apartment buildings, because I think that that's also going to be an amazing real estate investment for the future. Would you agree?
100%. And your challenge there is just spend your time doing your shopping. Find a place, again, a good, solid neighborhood. You want what they call B class. So B class means that it's in reasonably good condition. It's been maintained. It may not be modern, like with every amenity of today, but it's a good, solid, safe housing. What you don't want is the C and D properties. The C and Ds are the ones where maybe a little afraid to go out at night. And it's very run down, lots of deferred maintenance, needs, 800 replacement windows and all that. Those projects are really difficult, and I wouldn't bother with them. I'd look for B class. Again, this is working class housing. It's for people who have working class jobs that can pay rent. Their lives are pretty stable, but maybe they're not in the position to buy or they don't want to buy. That's the market to serve. And just if you can get your hands on those, get your hands on as many units as you can. And the bigger, the better. I know that may seem odd, but when you get above a certain size, like when you get, say, 100 units or larger, it can pay to have professional management. You don't have to deal with the midnight call about a clogged toilet because you've got a full-time maintenance guy that's there on property, and he or she can just go over and fix it. So the bigger, the better. I know that's a big, sort of big thing to swallow, but there are good people that teach about those things and teach about how to do that kind of investing. I would invest in some education. You can look online and see who some of the better and more reputable people are. And look, believe it or not, it's more possible than you think for a regular person to get 100 or 200 or 300 unit building, because it really goes on the math of the building, not on your credit. Those are not personal loans; those are business loans. So not typically personal liability. And when the deal makes sense, you can make the deal happen. And like I said, get the training from someone who's good. There are lots of those people available. You can see them online pretty easily. A couple of YouTube searches will start zooming in on people, and get that education and then do that. That is great advice.
I love that, because I really think multifamily, and I like what you just said about the B, I think is also really important, understanding B class versus A or C or D or anything. I owned a C class multifamily that was a couple hundred units in Atlanta. And I went in with obviously partners. I didn't do it all by myself, but enough to realize that C is not a good option.
I started there too. I had a C minus, and it was just one thing after another. I mean, just people have a lot of times personality problems, social problems, disorder in their lives, and they damage your building. This is the problem, and they don't pay rent all the time. So the numbers look great, but they're not. And it's, again, educate yourself, learn about the difference between A, B, C, D. A, by the way, is the ones that were just built, super high end, super expensive.
Right.
They're not really, they're not good investments for regular people. They're investments for hedge funds that have a capital cost of zero, basically. That's more who it's good for, and they can leverage the heck out of it. It's not for regular investors. Regular investors is B, but you can make a lot of money, make a fortune with those things, and really great business. And Jennifer, some people will listen and some people won't. And if people don't listen, someday will think, I remember when Jennifer was saying not to buy those C buildings or D buildings. But it looks so good on paper.
We're going to exit that. So the last thing that I do every time when I end a show now, I ask you to lift your voice and say yay with me before I end. So John, if you'll say a yay with us, and then Bob, let's all say yay together. So 3, 2, 1.
Yay!